Confessions of a Recruiter, episode 1. I'm joined here with my co-host, or I might be the co-host, or we're both co-hosts.
We're both co-hosts.
Yeah,
Fitty.
both co-hosts. And we decided to make a podcast called Confessions of a Recruiter just to bring some more community in the recruitment space, talk about our wins, our losses, experiences, and just riff, basically, and have something fun where recruiters can
Share stories.
yeah.
War stories.
Yeah.
You know, a bit of education, bit of humour.
Yep. So let's take
Shoot
a
the
trip
shit.
down. Yeah, let's take a trip down memory lane.
You've always been like entrepreneurial spirit, sales. How did the police come about?
That was like a childhood dream. That was always like, for me, I was like, okay, fireman, police officer, just two cool jobs that would just be sick to do. I was stale at TSA. I was like, this isn't fulfilling. So I was like, fuck it, I'll apply. And I had two options, basically. I was like, I'm going to move to Canada and just go live the life over there, maybe, you know, go to the slopes, whatever, or apply for the police. And it was like, you hear from everyone, it's difficult to get into the police. It's a long process. I was like getting ready to, okay, cool, let's go move to Canada. And then, yeah, police were like, yeah, cool, you're in. I was like, okay, here we go.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Where'd you get? Where were you posted to?
so I started
Or
in
stationed? They call it
Petrie
stationed.
Petrie Station.
Wow.
Petrie.
Yeah.
How's it out there, mate?
Mate, did you arrest him? He used to sell cars out there.
yeah.
All
Mate.
those dodgy used Holdens.
I remember getting the sheet because the only thing I knew from Petrie was like your mates,
Dallas.
like Dallas, like,
Yeah, yeah.
like living out there, like on properties and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
serious? Like I've come to join the police to get in the action, and I've gotten posted to this quiet little town.
Country
and-
town.
yeah, where there's just properties and no one doing anything. So I was like, this is gonna be boring. Get there, my first day, the officer that I'm working with is like, welcome to the busiest station in southern Queensland. I was like, sick. So yeah, it was like, so code 2s, which is like lights and sirens jobs. It's like, you know, there's someone who's an immediate threat, property damage, or, you know, health and safety in danger. Highest rating code 2s in Queensland.
Are in
Total.
Petrie.
What? So Petrie's
Petrie
just full of
area.
crime. How long were you in the police force for?
Just over a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was the deciding factor to go, nah, I'm done with this?
A couple of things. Firstly, culture. Not that the culture is horrible. It's more, to be a police officer, you are only a police officer. The only people you hang out with are police officers. You know, you talk the talk, you walk the walk, that's it. You don't really get a rest in between. All your mates are working, you know, normal 9-to-5 jobs. You've got 2 weeks of night shift and you don't see anyone. So for me, it was kind of like 1, money, 2, lifestyle. That I was just like, okay, do I really want to do this? I'd lived out the boyhood dream that I was like, yeah, cool, gunslinging cowboy for a year. Then I was like, okay, cool. Now what do I actually want? And then that was when it was kind of like, okay, I know I'm not going to be here forever, so why waste time?
You smashed out door knocking, and that was 18 months, wasn't it?
No, not quite. It was 11.
11. And what made you go, I'm just going to hang up the boots?
Mate, when you're walking around, like, you walk around Auchenflower or Toowong, which is hilly as hell in the middle of summer, it's enough to make anyone quit.
Well, you've heard our stories when I started Blended.
Yeah,
We used to trudge around, the three of us,
yeah.
in
Sounds
safari
awful.
outfits.
It sounds awful.
Mate, it's such hard work. And I used to have the app on my phone, like about your steps.
Oh,
Be
yeah.
like 10 to 12 Ks
Yeah,
every Wednesday
yeah.
in a safari outfit with a safari hat on, collecting business cards. I think we got 2,700 business cards, and we worked out we had about a 7 out of 10 strike rate.
Mm.
So what's an extra 30% on that? It's probably like 4,000 door knocks.
Yeah.
And then you get back to the office, and then that afternoon you'd be trying to punch in all the data so you could call on the next day.
Yeah, mate. Like, if you'd been doing that
Makes
when I
me
joined.
tired. Makes me tired just thinking about it.
Oh, if you told me we got to go out and knock on some doors today, when I'd started, I'd have been like,
Not happening, mate,
Not
I'm
happening. Not happening, buddy.
Oh, we call cold calls smart calls.
Oh, smart
Smart
calls.
Yeah.
calls.
Write
Okay.
down. Smart calls. It just takes, it's not cold. So each consultant gets to run the sales meeting. So a few weeks ago, I ran the sales meeting and I said, all right, sweet. We're getting so much work in. No one needs to make any business development or cold calls right now, but are we future-proofing our businesses? There's going to come a time where,
Smart.
you know, there's going to come a time. We can't live like this forever. We wish we could, but we can't.
Yeah.
So what are we doing to future-proof our business? Let's this week pick one person, only one human that you've never spoken to before, and call them. It's not a cold call. think of it as a SMAART call, as like someone that you's in your network, but you really don't know them, but someone knows them. Pick up the phone and give them a call.
That's smart.
Right? And we all got off on it. We were like, this is actually really fun.
Yeah.
And we spent the next sales meeting, everyone had success. Even now we've got a junior recruiter, trainee recruiter, recruitment consultant, but he's new. And he is the first person without any recruitment experience that's worked for Resourceful in the last 10 years. And anyway, we employed the bass guitar player from Violent Soho. He came to the sales meeting with the SMAART call, and it was hilarious. He called this lady, and I haven't had like a rejection call in so long because the market's so hot right now. Like, people actually want to hear from you. Yep. But he had a rejection call, and this lady tried so many times to get him off the phone. He literally said, like, our most senior consultant in exec search had to counsel him after the call. It was so funny. This lady shot him down. But rather than being like, okay, no worries, see you later, thanks for the call, bye, he was like, can I ask you one more question?
I actually hired a girl. She doesn't work for me anymore. And she had an insane work ethic. And she pumped the phones, and the idea was just to keep them on the phone. Yeah. And there was some absolute cracker phone calls in our office when she was working for us. Like, we're all sitting there doing our calls, and then you hear this, she starts speaking super loud. You know when you're like on the phone to someone and it's really loud and you speak loud as well?
Yeah.
You
can't hear yourself.
You got headphones on, you can
yeah.
Noise cancelling AirPods.
And there was this phone call that she was having. And she's talking, and she's like, yep, okay, and sorry, I know you're mowing the lawn, but and this literally call this person that's got the lawnmower going, and she's trying to keep him on the phone.
Wow.
And it was the funniest thing. And I almost fell off my chair, yeah. And I'm like, what's going on there? She's like, I just really needed an updated CV. And so rather than send it to me, I just wanted to ask them the questions on their resume so I could update it for them. She's like, okay.
We've all been there.
I know you're mowing the lawn right now, but so what's your major achievement in this position?
Stop.
Yeah. And you've seen some like big dogs start from nothing and obviously build up internally within a good company and go out and start their own businesses. What makes a good recruiter?
I think most people understand the process. They know what it requires. And I'd say like 80% of them probably got the talent and the intellect to do it. The difference is just the application of the talent. Just so many recruiters, they love talking about it. They just don't do it. They don't do enough.
And how do you be that 500K biller? You're getting consistent, but you need like the mill. Just how do you get there?
The constant application.
Yeah.
Like it's how difficult, like the process is simple, but it's also the nuance throughout the process. So it's like job in from a client. We got to find some candidates, and then we fill, we interview obviously, and then we fill the job. It sounds pretty simple, but like throughout that process, it's humans dealing with humans about other humans. Like everything's moving and thinking and changing its mind. So like with experience, you judge, you can predict things are going off track, and that becomes easier. That's all just a time in the seat thing. But what you can do from day one is you can apply your talents like with drive and motivation. Like no one can ever take that away from you. If you're willing to make more calls than anybody else, you'll succeed. And then as you add experience and maturity and the nuance understanding into that, you just become like an absolute weapon.
What advice would you give to someone that's considering getting into recruitment?
Do it. I think it's an amazing industry. Like it's in the right company. Like it's almost like you're running a franchise without the risk. So it's Blended or Vendito or 40/20. They come in, they take all the like advantage of the database, the experience of their colleagues, and they basically can earn lots of money doing that. Or they talk to you guys about XRecruiter and they go out on their own. Probably not from day one. They get some experience first.
Month 2.
Yeah, week 3. But the best thing is it's a meritocracy. I love about recruitment is your attitude and performance dictates everything. It dictates your success, your earning potential, how much fun you have, how much freedom. Like the greatest luxuries in life are freedom of choice and time. And money is just a facilitator of that. Like don't get caught up in what money can buy you. The best things money gets you is freedom of choice and time. And especially once you're a parent, you realize that more. And recruitment is something that will create freedom of choice and time if you do it right. So anyone that is thinking about it, I encourage them.
When I worked in aged care, it was just like a case of like, it was an eye opener. Like, it's like, what if? You know, people get to the end of their life, they're 80, they're 90, like, I wish I did this, or I wish I did that, but I didn't do that because, you know, my family wouldn't let me travel, and
I was scared of what people thought.
Yeah, like opinions or procrastination, and I've just always had this thing that I'm like, nah, I want to try. If I can't stop thinking about it, like sort of like, you know, when they say like, if you can't stop thinking about something that you really want and that you want to buy, you just buy it, you know? And there's other times you think about it, you're like, oh, I really like that, but you never think about it again. It's the same with like a business idea. I think if you can't, like with my brand, I didn't sleep for like 3 weeks. I just kept dreaming about it. I'm like, this is like a sign. Like, I'm all about signs and manifesting. And I'm like, yep, I'm just going to do it if I fail. And
What about the execution? Because you know what? In XRecruiter, I have spoken to, I'd say 10 recruiters right now that have fantasized with starting their own recruitment agency and want to get on board with the XRecruiter model. But a lot of them struggle with executing and making the decision to pull the pin. And so a big thing that lacks for a lot of individuals in or out of recruitment is execution and just doing it. What do you think is the difference between someone that can just do it like you, that is, you're in recruitment, you've got a full-time job, you're juggling a side hustle, you're trying to launch your brand, well, you've launched your brand and you've got a successful brand. Like, what is the difference between you and the other person that wants to do it but hasn't actually pulled the trigger yet?
I think it's about how hungry you are to do it, you know? I think there's a lot of procrastination in people that like have, like I said, it's an idea until you execute it. Like, it's just an idea, but you've got to take the first step. So for me, like, I was just couldn't stop thinking about, you know, the end goal. I was like, I want to have a warehouse, I want to have people. So I would just write down a list. I would tick off everything. And then I remember I put on my Instagram, like, launch date. I'm like, all right, shit, like, this is where, like, I've hit an expectation to the audience that I'm like, if I don't launch, like, I'm going to look stupid. So it's just about having, like, maybe like a time frame.
You know what? That's a really good point, because a lot of people internalize things and they can be a bit of a coward to their own goals because they're the only ones that know about it and they can back out of it. Whereas as soon as you externalize it and tell others, hey, I'm doing this, I want to do this, and it might not be done yet, it kind of really locks you in. So like
Because you don't want to look like a fool.
Exactly. Yeah. So like that's a really good point that you bring up around externalizing something and just pushing it out to the audience and forcing yourself to commit to it.
You can't go back.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get people looking through my LinkedIn. They'll say, hey, like, I saw you post on LinkedIn and I saw you mention some of the, like, you know, it's a great place to work. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then starting a conversation. And a lot of times, like, straight away
if someone asks, can you tell me a bit more about that? Are you like, yeah, mate, it's awesome.
Do you actually, if someone gives you an open-ended question like that,
Yeah.
like, hey, I saw you recruiting for this, so tell me, what else are you looking for in a candidate? Well, did you be like, yeah, so we're looking for this?
Like, probably, because I want to see what's going to come out.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see what's going to come out on the other side of that conversation, and whether or not that benefits me then and there. I'm like, can I build a relationship out of this? And I think one of the things that I've always said to building relationships, whether it be with candidate, because sometimes as a recruiter, you need, like, sometimes we do our own headhunting, right? So very similar to an agency, we're trying to get people to quit their job and come and work for us, like wherever that may be. And so the key that I've always said to building relationships, especially with a hiring manager, but also with a candidate or an agency, is that you need to find that common ground. You need to find whatever that little key is that's going to let you through the gate. So I guess as an example, using it from a hiring manager point of view, there was one hiring manager that I could never not get along with, but we could just never connect. And then so we really struggled to build a relationship. And from there, we struggled to build a trust. So she didn't trust me with the candidates that I was sending her. And I didn't really trust her on the decisions that she was making about whether or not those candidates were going to be good for her. Like, she's saying these candidates aren't good for me. And I'm like, yeah, they are. Like, they've got all the experience, but because we don't trust each other. And then I walked past her once and I heard her and she was stressing about, she was trying to plan a wedding at the time and she was having all this difficulty and blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, I was trying to plan my 30th, not anything as major, but it's like just one of those things where it's a pain in the ass to try and do. And so I sparked up this conversation with her about, like, do you know any good vendors for, like, decoration hire or cakes or whatever, and it sparked this conversation. So not only have you then, you're having a conversation, you've engaged in a common ground, you're having just a normal conversation, not about work, and you're getting to see that this person can hold a conversation, they're a little bit likable, throw a couple of jokes, and you're having a laugh, but also she's going to come away from that and go, I was talking about something and Zander listened, and he remembered, and he came back, and then a couple of days later, he saw that common ground that we had, and he brought it up, and straight away, we had a trust.
Once you've got an understanding and the confidence in yourself, and the realization that you don't have to be this perfect, oh my God, you know, an exec search recruiter has to walk around with a, you know, the flashy suit and the tie on and all that sort of shit. Man, it's Queensland. I've literally caught up with people in process dressed how I am now. Shorts, shirt, and some kicks. Like,
Mate, it's like you're the SAS recruiters. You know what I mean? Like, that's how the top army guys roll around. And you guys just, and then every other recruiter in person below, they're all wearing suits and.
I mean, don't get me wrong. When I'm in those
Interviews
board,
and
in the
stuff like
board
that,
kind
yeah.
of
Oh,
ones,
you put the image on.
like you're in a suit. But typically, if you're catching up with the candidate, you know, over coffee and you're sort of talking about the process, they just want someone human because it's a big decision. And a lot of the time you're getting people to relocate. You know, you've got to be human. You can't expect someone to pack up if they're living in Victoria to move to Queensland, or if they're living in Queensland and to head south and all they see is this dude wearing a suit all the time. They need someone that's human, that's able to talk about real life shit on the side as well as the job opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
So there's two things when you're interviewing a candidate. First of all, you're assessing their skills and suitability for the role and cultural fit. And then normally, secondly, you then sell the job to the candidate. When it's a group assessment, you're doing the selling first. You're getting the enthusiasm going first. So it's certainly changed over time. And again, based on the market conditions at the moment, we're doing more and more selling. Whereas back when I started, unemployment was different. Group assessments, then we probably did actual more assessing of the candidates. And when I think about how we did them back then, we probably couldn't do it the same way now because we'd lose all the candidates. So we were running group assessments for outbound telesales, cold calling roles, right? Back then it was paying maybe $19 an hour award wage, and our client would put them through a role play. So a large part of the group assessment was like doing role play calls in a group, really intimidating stuff. But in some ways we needed that because if people couldn't do it in that environment, then they couldn't do it for our client. But, you know, so Stuart, you know, probably ran 30 group interviews before I ran one. But
And so you were just a part of it, watching him do
yeah,
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be along those lines. But and now we sometimes a first round group assessment at SMAART Recruitment is very different to then how if we would run it if the client was there as well, because we're further advanced and we're talking about different things in the role. But many people who are really good at recruitment aren't very good at group assessments because it's a performance. I was saying before, it's a bit like an art form. You're going to set the tone. You're going to walk in. You're going to be up the front of the room. I like a group size of about 8, but if you walk into the room, whatever you project out, you're going to get back. So if you walk in, hey guys, great to be here. Thanks for coming this morning. Good to see you, Tim. You know, we're going to have a great session this morning. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn about each other. We're going to learn about the role. So you really got to create some really good energy, and you introduce yourself really well. And then you need to pick in the room the person to introduce themselves first who you think is going to do it best. Because whatever that first person does, everybody does. You know, if they introduce themselves for 2 minutes, give a really good background, everyone else will be a little bit either side of 2 minutes. If they're really shy and quiet and they do a 20-second introduction, everyone else is going to do between 15 and 25-second introduction. So you've got to read the room. You've got to pick what's happening. You've got to lighten the mood.
Super interesting.
Yeah,
I think.
we've yeah.
So you had is it the biggest recruitment agency in Australia ever, or at the time? How would you describe Morgan and Banks?
Well, it got to be. I mean, it started off as a bit of a journey. I'd been in the industry 4 years. Jeff Morgan had been in the industry 15 years. And I decided for various reasons, work for Jeff Slade, and that was great. I learned a lot. I didn't know anything about recruitment when I started, but for various reasons, I decided to go up my own. And because I was new to Australia, I thought I need a partner, and preferably an Aussie, you know, made sense. And so I worked on a strategy, because I remember Warren Buffett saying, don't go into business with friends, go into business with people who complement your own skills. So I figured, how do I do that? And I remember doing some work on who's the toughest competitor I've got. And I gauged that by, if I ring a client and say, hi, I'm Andrew Banks from Slade Consulting, I want to come and see you. I know you've probably got a current recruitment firm and you're probably happy with them, but I'd like to share with you how we go about things and see if you can compare services. And I'd usually get an appointment, but I couldn't get into Morgan's clients. They'd always just say, nah, we use Jeff Morgan. He's pretty good. Thanks, but no thanks. So I thought, well, you must have something. So I headhunted Jeff and we went and had lunch, and the rest is history. To answer your question, we grew from 4 to 10. We looked back and suddenly we were 2,000 people and about 950 million in revenue, including temp revenue. And we had 17% of the market. And I think other people can do their homework, but I don't think any recruitment company has ever had 17% of a national market ever before. And even Allegis, which bought Talent 2, I know a bit about, they do about 11 billion in the US. That's still nowhere near 17% of the US market. So it was a big, but I mean, we didn't start off trying to make it big. It just ended up there.
Yeah, this is just to give an idea how much the world has changed, right? So when I came to Sydney 6 years later, after I'd gone and worked in London, I'll tell you a story about that too. There was no internet. The fax machine was invented 6 years after I started in recruitment. Now, fax machine changed our world, because you've got to just imagine, it's hard for you, but think about this. If you had a candidate, the only way you could get that candidate's resume to a client was to post it, unless you got a motorbike, which is expensive. So you came very good at selling candidates on the phone. When the fax machine came, it was like voodoo for me and everyone, because you could get a candidate's stuff in front of it. I know in this modern age it's hard to imagine. It was just incredible to get a candidate's details in front of a client in real time and talk to them. And of course, the recruitment industry being as competitive as it was, one of our competitors, which I won't mention on this podcast, when we took jobs and they were given to us and this particular competitor, they knew we would be sending through resumes by fax, so they would fax blank paper to the client for 2 hours.
And block it.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of, you think, counterintuitive about having a good relationship with your client, but we couldn't get our resumes through. So that's the sort of world it was. The other thing is, all the jobs are in the newspaper, right? There's no online. So the classifieds, Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, 50% of the paper was job ads. And you had to place them on a Thursday to see them in there on a Saturday to get a call on the Monday, right? So that's as quick as it could work. So if you had an ad come in on Thursday at 5 o'clock, you could only advertise 10 days later. It was too late. So, but here's the thing that will shock you. It shocked me. It's in the book, but I had to check. I had to pay to get into the Sydney Morning Herald's archives just to make sure my thinking was correct. The newspaper, the classified ads, which was that thick of newspaper, was divided into 2 sections. And the first section was men and boys, and the second section was women and girls. So jobs were actually placed in the paper by gender. So if you're looking for a nurse's job, obviously you went for a girl. And if you're looking for an accountant job, obviously you went for a men, because, a woman couldn't be allowed to do such a senior job. That was in my lifetime. So it's just imagine what the world's come to, how the world's changed.
And what's your most exciting thing about owning and running Halisoft? What do you like most about it?
I think one of the most exciting things, and I'm only just starting to get there now, is the freedom and opportunities it can provide in other areas of your life. Like you're in a unique circumstance where you can generate a lot of cash flow, and even the way you think about like what you want to do in your what you want to do personally and how to set yourself up, it changes, because you, like, going from someone that was, for example, a first year apprentice on like 50K a year.
You wouldn't have been on that much.
No, apprentices are getting higher and higher these days.
Yeah.
Hey, like, it's not like back in the day. But anyway, like when I was there, like my mindset was, man, I'm just going to work real hard for the next 5 years and save 25 grand and buy a house and live in it forever type thing. But I feel like the more it goes on, and it just opens up so many more avenues to like stuff that you want to do outside of work as well, which I think is really cool, because everyone wants well, I don't know if everyone wants to be rich, but everyone wants like freedom and stuff. And I feel like if you keep going on along the down the line and grow and all that sort of stuff, it becomes a lot more real and there's plenty more avenues as to what you could actually do, that's one thing that I really enjoy.
Then I did always want to start my own business in that regard. So I guess it was always something I kind of wanted to do. And just like any kind of recruiter, once you hit a certain level of kind of billings, which you do need to hit in order to start your own business, then it gives you the capability to do so. And I guess if you start your own business, you really, really got to want to do it because, you know.
What was the hardest part about starting your own business? Was there anything that you got stuck in or thought, geez, how do I overcome this? And you overcame that?
I think the hardest thing about starting your own business is like when you buy your CRM platform and you go onto it and there's nothing on there. So it's literally generating reads, particularly on the candidate side, you know, from nothing. And, you know, getting no inbound leads, a lot of the avenues that you have, you know, such as Seek, LinkedIn, all these other things, which, you know, and I started it from a bedroom, which you can't afford. You know, having that, you know, missing that is, you know, a massive obstacle. And I think that one of the hardest things as well is like starting your own recruitment agency by yourself, like all three of us have, like it's pretty lonely. Like it's like the first year, like I always found it like the first 3 months, you were like, I'm super like into this. I'm my own business owner. I'm buzzing. I'm thriving. And then kind of after that 3 months, then I reckon you just join into like the grind where it's kind of like now I'm like I'm over that stage. Like I'm still like going, and I was living at home at the time, like still going and making these cold calls and like frozen leads and all this sort of stuff.
There's a moment where, you know, you stop having a work and a life balance and you're just alive. You know, I'm just showing up as this is who I am in this moment today. And if the most meaningful thing that I can do today is, you know, take the morning off and go to book week, that's the most meaningful thing. And if the most meaningful thing is that I really need to deliver on the brief, then I'll do that. But yeah, just being able to pick as a human as opposed to being a corporate entity. I think there's a process that you go through around giving yourself permission to do those things, because you start to embody the do's and don'ts of corporate culture, right? Like you would never take a morning off working for a corporate where you go, I'm just going to go surfing today, because we know that makes you a bad employee, right? Yeah. But when you own the business, it's funny how it takes a while. You still work with those same belief systems, and it takes a while to undo all of those things where you're like, actually, do you know what? It's 32 degrees. It's a bloody beautiful day. I am going to go to the beach and I'm going to feed my soul, and then I'm going to come back and really enjoy what I do tomorrow. Like, and to just give yourself permission to do it and enjoy it and live. And I think then you have something to offer that's not just a candidate, right?
And then I went and got this job with this like proper shit recruitment company. Like I was recruiting for like chefs and like fucking like I would do like a chef, and then I would do like a caretaker, and then I would do like the worst type of jobs, you know what I mean? Like, you know, just not, I mean, the guys who are doing those jobs are great, they're 100%, but I mean, it's not what you want to be recruiting for, you know? So this was old school as well. This company, we didn't have individual emails, right? We had one like company email, right? You know what they would do? This is horrendous, right? You get a chef in, right? In his full whites, right? So you'd come in, he was all in his full whites, and he'd sit in front of you at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you had to start ringing until you placed him that day. He would fucking sit in front of you, and so you were ringing around. You talk about pressure, like that's fucking pressure. This guy's like, get me work. You know what I mean? You're like, fucking hell, man, won't be long now, mate. It was fucking it was so brutal. I was like, this job's fucking horrendous. And then this is the even worst part of it, right? So you had your day book, right? So you had like 30 guys out working for you, right? And you had to check them in every day, right?
What do you mean? So
you had to ring them up and go, here, is John in work today? And they're like, yeah, right? And I had a guy in a, so I like inherited some, you know, when you move in, like they had some temps out working. And there was one dude, and he was working in a library, right? And he was like an admin dude in a library. And he was there for like 3 years, right? And I had to ring up every day, right? I'm like, oh, is John in today? And they were like, yeah, John's here. Like, you don't need to call every day. I'm like, no, seriously, I do.
Declan, do you remember the rule of the podcast, mate?
Yeah, I remember the rule. I always share this with everyone.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
me too.
Do it every week. Yeah, if you do enjoy it anyway, like, you know, we all get a lot out of this from all perspectives, whether it's catching up with, you know, people like Mark today or hearing a little snippet about focusing on a niche that pretty much every single guest has said since we've been on. So all these little things are really important for all of us to be getting better, because I think I've learned more about recruitment in these last 15 or 16 episodes than I have in 4 years sometimes with the knowledge and sound bites. So if you do enjoy it, share it around. If you don't, then just keep it to yourself.